السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي. رب زدني علما اللهم فقهنا في الدين آمين يا رب العالمين. Inshallah, I hope that all of you are doing well. So inshallah, today we are going to continue from the topic which we started last week. So from the topic of Makharij. Inshallah, we'll just do a very quick review before we move on to the next Makharij. So just what we learned last week, we have the Makharij. Makharij is the plural of the word Makhraj. In Tajweed, Makhraj is the articulation point or the place where the sound of the letter comes from. And then again, Makharij is plural for the word Makhraj. So Makhraj is for one, Makharij if we are referring to more than one. So basically, the movement that we make in order to create sounds in the Arabic language is known as the study of Makharij. So Makharij al-Huruf, the study of the articulation points of the Arabic language. So we learned that there are 5 major areas of the Makharij. Amongst them are the khayshum, the nasal passage, shafatan, the 2 lips, al-jawf, the empty space between the mouth and the throat, al-lisan, the tongue, and then finally we have al-halq, the throat. So these are the 5 major areas. Now within the major areas, we have 17 different makharij. And the way that we learn this is that basically you can think of the major area maybe as the city, and then the makharij is going to be the general address. So for example, we are living in a city, then our house is going to have its own unique address. So this is similar to the makharij. Every major area is going to be a city. So for example, you can say, you live in, New York. So that's like maybe the major area, that is the state that you live in. Maybe for like a city, you can take that example as well. So that major area is going to be one of these 5. So khayshum, lisan, shafatan, halq, or jawf. And then within that, we have 17 makharij. So you can take either maybe the street that you live on or your specific address. So then the makharij are going to get even more specific. So here is a demonstration of this. We have the division of the 17 makharij. So again, 5 general areas. We see these boxes here. We have 5 of them. 5 different areas. These are the general areas. Now, within all of these areas, we are going to have further specifications of each makharij. So here, for example, al-halq, the throat. So within the throat now we have 3 separate makharij. We have the upper throat, the middle throat, and the lower throat. Here, upper throat, middle throat, lower throat. So within the general area of al-halq, within the throat, we have 3 separate streets, you can say, 3 separate addresses. So each of these letters have their own makharij, and there are a total of 17 in the Arabic language, 3 in al-halq. We have quite a few of al-lisan. Many of the letters are in this makharij, so we have a few of this. And then in the lips, we have 2 separate makharij. The jawf, we have 1 makharij, and then the nasal passage, we have also 1 makharij. So just a quick overview of what all of these makharij look like. This is going to be the throat. Here, this one in dark blue. Then we have the tongue. You can see quite a lot of letters are from the tongue. Majority of the Arabic alphabet is going to be from the tongue. Then finally, we have here the lips over here, and then we have the nasal passage up here, of course, in the nose. And then also we have the jawf, which is going to be this empty area over here. So between the tongue and between the roof of the mouth, this passage where air basically comes in and out, also the place where we eat from. So this is how food is going to get down into the throat. This empty area, this absence of anything, is going to be called al-jawf. So we learned that of the Jawf letters, we have 3. Very, very important. You have to say al-madiyya after these letters. So if I ask you what are the Jawf letters, you are going to say alif, waw, and ya, madiyya. What does madiyya mean? Meaning when alif has a mad, when waw has a mad, or when ya has a mad. And mad is basically the lengthening. So the makharij of hamza is not Jawf. The makharij of waw is not going to be the jawf. The makharij of ya is not the jawf. The makharij of alif maddiya or waw maddiya or ya maddiya is going to be the jawf. So this is something very important because later on we are going to learn that hamza, waw, and ya have their own separate makharij. We already learned for hamza. Hamza is from where? Al-halq, from the throat. So we cannot say that hamza is one of the jawf letters. Instead, alif maddiya is going to be the jawf letter. Same thing with waw. Waw, we will learn, is from the lips, but when it is waw maddiya, then it is going to be from the jawf. Same thing with ya. Ya is from the tongue, but if it has a med, then it is going to be from the jawf. And you can experience this on your own. Just say ah, e, oo. So you can see that the sound is coming out easily here from the vocal box. You can see here down here, it is just simply coming out. You don't have to do much, and you'll see that there's not much contact being made within your mouth. So there's not a lot of things that are going on inside. Very easily, the sound can just slip out of the jawf. In this empty space, you will very easily feel that it is coming from here and easily going out of the mouth. So e, oo. So this is going to be the jawf. Again, very important. Alif maddiya with the mad. Waw maddiya with a mad, or ya maddiya with a ya. Then we learned also the lean letters are also the jawf. So this is if we have a fatha with a waw sukun or a fatha with a ya sukun. Inshallah, this is also one of the sifat of the letters, one of the characteristics of the letters. We will learn this later on. There are a little bit more details about this. For now, just know that waw lean and ya lean are also going to be from the jawf. So if you have the sound ow, a, both of these sounds are also going to be from the jawf. So you will see the sound is coming from here, the sound box simply slipping out of the mouth in this empty area. You won't have much contact within the mouth. It is just slipping out easily. Oh, a. So the makhraj here is going to be the jawf. So we have alif maddiya, waw maddiya, ya maddiya, and then we have waw lean and ya lean. So these are the letters of the jawf. Then we learned the throat letters. So first, like I mentioned, the throat has three separate makharij. We have the lower throat, the upper throat, and the middle of the throat. So in the lower throat, close to the chest, we have hamza, a, e, u. So this is a pretty simple letter. Alhamdulillah, most people do not have a problem with the letter hamza. Then also from the same makharij, we have the letter ha. Also from the lower throat, ha, he, hu, ah. So this again is a pretty simple letter. Alhamdulillah, most people do not have a problem with hamza or ha. So you will feel closer to the chest. It comes out with ease. You don't have to apply too much pressure. The sound is naturally going to come out from the chest. Then we have the middle of the throat. This is something that if you people have a problem with, something that maybe you might need to practice on, but it is very, very important that when you say the letter ayn, it comes from the middle of the throat. The reason for this is that because hamza and ayn are both from the throat, we do not want the sound to sound the same. So if we have, for example, in Surah Fatiha, the word al-alamin, it should not sound like al-alamin. So al-alamin, this is hamza. Al-alamin, this is from the middle of the throat. This is ayn. So you should feel a little bit of strangulation. So you can see here that the throat is kind of being constricted. Right here, if you can see the sound is coming out, you feel a little bit of constriction on this part, right here where the sound is coming from. So some strangulation, you can push your hand into your throat. Now that kind of strangled sound is the sound of the ayn. Of course, it's not that obvious, but it is similar to the sound of the ayn. So ri, ru, ar. So this is the sound of the ayn. Also from the middle of the throat, the letter ha. Ha is also going to be a little bit of pressure in the middle of the throat. You can feel here. Not as much as ayn, but you do see a little bit of constriction in the middle of the throat. Now, the sound for ha can come when you are, for example, warming up your hands. So if you are blowing on your hands, trying to get warm air out, so that is the sound of ha. Again, ha and ha are two different letters. One is from the lower throat, one is from the middle throat. They should not sound the same. Alhamdu and alhamdu are two different words. So you want to make sure that you are saying the letter ha from the middle of the throat. So you do want a little bit of warm air to escape as you are saying the letter ha. Also, you should feel maybe a little bit of constriction, not too much, not as much as the letter ayn, but just a little bit. So that is the letter ha in the middle of the throat. Then in the upper throat, we did the letters ghain and kha. So these are closer to the mouth. Ghain, we learned, is a heavy sound, so the mouth should be a little bit full. You will see here the back of the tongue is raised. So this is what it means when we say that a letter is heavy, the back of the tongue is raised. Okay, so you will notice, inshallah, as we do more of the heavy letters, that all of the letters that are heavy will have the back of the tongue raised a little bit. So this is how you make a sound heavy. So here for ghain, we have from the upper throat, gha, ghi, al. So here the sound is heavy coming from the upper throat. Then also from the upper throat, we have the letter kha. Kha is also going to be heavy. So again, you see the back of the tongue is raised. The mouth should have a feeling of fullness. Kha, khi, khu, akh. So kha is also one of the heavy letters. Again, here, back of the tongue is going to be raised, and this is here from the upper throat. So alhamdulillah, that is a review of the throat letters. We did cover this last week. You can see the previous video, inshallah, if you would like to do a more thorough review of the throat letters. Now, inshallah, let's move on to the next general area. So we learned that there are 5 general areas. Alhamdulillah, we already covered the jawf, the empty space between the mouth and the throat. We also covered right now al-halq, or the throat. So now, inshallah, let's move on to the next general area. Inshallah, this is going to be quite intensive because most of the letters, like I mentioned, are going to be from al-lisan. Al-lisan means the tongue. So the Arabic word for tongue is going to be al-lisan. Most of the letters are from al-lisan, so you will have to learn quite a few for this makharij. Now, inshallah, we're going to start from the back and then move our way up. So here we did the letters of the throat. So here we had ghain and kha in this general area. So inshallah, we will make our way up and then slowly go out of the mouth. So now the letter qaf. Qaf is a difficult letter. I think quite a few people have trouble with this, especially if you speak English. The reason for this is that the letter qaf does not exist in English. You will only have the letter K. K is similar to the letter of gaf. So gaf and K are similar. Qaf does not exist within the English language. Therefore, a lot of people have a problem with this pronunciation. So inshallah, we will try to learn the makharij so that we can have a more accurate portrayal of this letter. So what is the makharij of the letter qaf? So qaf is from here. So this is the tongue, and you will see that the tongue is touching the roof of the mouth. Okay, so this specific part here, this part in pink, is known as the upper palate. Okay, so the upper palate, the tongue is going to touch the upper palate. So now let's look at the meaning, the root of the tongue. So the root meaning the very back of the tongue. So you should not be using the front of your tongue. We're not using this part. We are using the root of the tongue, very close to your throat. So right where your throat is about to begin, this part of the tongue, we are going to use the root of the tongue touching the soft part of the upper palate. So again, this is the upper palate. Right here, we have this pink area on the roof of the mouth. In the upper palate, we are going to have a soft part and a hard part. So here, this is soft. It's more spongy, more fleshy. You can kind of feel it if you say the letter qaf, qaf. You will feel a little bit of spongy. The back of this area is going to be soft. So this is known as the soft part of the upper palate. Now moving here a little bit, this is going to be the harder part. So if you say the letter kaf, we will learn this next. Ak. So you will feel that there is a little bit of more hardness compared to this part. So that is the difference between the letter qaf and kaf. Qaf is going to be the tongue touching the soft part. Kaf is going to be touching the hard part. And inshallah, if you try to say the letter qaf, you will fully understand what I'm saying when I say soft part or when I say hard part. So if you say the letter qaf, aqo, qa, qi, qu, aqo, you will feel that the back of the tongue or the root of the tongue is touching the soft part. So you will feel a little bit of spongy fleshiness. It's very soft towards the back. So this is the difference between qaf and kaf. qaf is from the soft part. Now, there is one other thing that makes the makhraj of qaf and kaf different. The makhraj, the difference is going to be that qaf is a heavy letter. So again, what does it mean when a letter is heavy? The back of the tongue is going to be raised. So you see here, there's like a little bit of a hump to the back of the tongue. This is what happens when you make a letter heavy. So also in ghain and kha, you will notice that tongue was also raised. You will also see this little bump here. So when we have this hump, when we have a little bit of raising to the back of the tongue, the letter becomes heavy. So qaf is also a heavy letter. Do not make it light, otherwise it may sound like gaf. So if you say ga, ki, ku, now that sounds like the letter gaf. We are saying the letter qaf, which is heavy. So you want the back of the tongue raised. Qa, qi, ku, aqo. So here the root of the tongue touches the soft part. Also qaf is heavy. So that is the two main differences between qaf and kaf. Qaf is heavy, kaf is light. Qaf touches the soft part of the upper palate and kaf is going to touch the hard part. So here now we are looking, you see here, kaf, root of the tongue touching the hard part of the upper palate. So here, right over here is the soft part. Very spongy, kind of like the back of the throat area. This is where the qaf is going to touch. The qaf was touching here. Kaf touches a little bit harder up, and this is going to be the hard part, the roof of the mouth. So you should feel a little bit of hardness. Ak, ak, ak. So you will hear a little bit of that. You know, it's not heavy, and then also it is touching the hard part. So if you say it on your own, qaf and kaf, you will notice the difference. Qa and ka, you will feel that one is hard and one is soft. And this is something that you have to say on your own in order to experience the difference. So you'll know exactly what is going on in your mouth. Of course, we don't see our own mouth like this. But when you say it, then you'll be able to better visualize what's going on in your mouth. Now here, kaf is light. So kaf is not a heavy letter. So again, you see that there is no bump in the tongue. So we noticed in the qaf, the back of the tongue was raised, and here the entire tongue is the same. So there's no bump here, there's no hump. So therefore, it is going to be light. So alhamdulillah, not a lot of people have a problem with the letter kaf. Qaf is the one that is more difficult. So for qaf, ka, ki, ku, ek. So again, it's pretty simple, similar to the letter K in English. Alhamdulillah, a lot of people don't have a problem with this. It's mainly the letter qaf, which is a little bit more difficult. So moving forward a little bit more, now we were back here in the upper palate. Now we are moving forward a bit. So again, we're starting from down here and then moving our way out. Now we are going to study the middle of the tongue. So from here, we're moving out a little bit. Now from the middle of the tongue, we have the makhraj of the letters jim, sheen, and ya. Now you might be thinking, we already did the letter ya when we were doing jawf. What is the answer to that? This ya is going to be the actual ya. The one in the jawf was ya maddiya. Remember I said this is very important. Keep this in mind. The jawf letters are only in the jawf because they have mad. Now, if a mad letter does not have the mad, then it is going to be from its normal makhraj. So the normal makhraj for the letter ya is going to be the middle of the tongue. Now the general area is going to be the middle of the tongue touching the upper palate. So again, the upper palate is this area, the harder part. So this area right here is the upper palate. This red part is the soft palate. So the upper palate is going to be right here, the roof of the mouth, and the middle of the tongue is going to touch the top of the mouth. But you can see here, there is a difference between all three of these letters. Now, this is a question that may arise, that if all three of these letters have the same makhraj, why do they not sound the same? If jim, sheen, and ya all come from the middle of the tongue touching the upper palate, then why is it that all three of these letters sound different? And the answer you can clearly see if you look at these photos. So here we have the makhraj of the ya ghayr al-maddiya. So again, without mad. Otherwise, if it has mad, it is going to be the jawf. So this is ghayr al-maddiya without the letter ya. You see here that it's not fully touching the upper palate. The ya, the tongue is not fully going up to the top. So if you say the letter ya, yi, ay, ayu. So you see that the tongue is not touching the roof of the mouth. So even here, you see it's pretty open. The sound is coming from here, but it's not touching. So this is the makhraj of the letter ya. So even though you are engaging the middle of the tongue, you are engaging the upper palate, the roof of the mouth, you are not going to have full contact between the roof of the mouth and the tongue. And you can experience that when you see here, there is empty space. If you say it on your own, you say this, for example, with the shadda, ayyu, AU. So there is barely any contact from this area specifically that is coming. The rest of this, there is no pressure. There is no touching of the upper palate. So just this small area, you will have a little bit of pressure. The rest of it, it's pretty much open. So here, the ya has a lot of space. Now compare this to the letter sheen. Now for the sheen, you will see that difference. So again, let's look at the shape of the tongue. So the tongue here is protruding a little bit more compared to the ya, but you will see there is less space between the roof of the mouth and between the tongue. Now if we say the letter ash, and then you say ay and ash. Now sheen is going to have more space. So here, more of the tongue is going to touch the upper area. Here, less of the tongue is touching. So this is the difference between ya and sheen. Basically the space that is here, the amount of the tongue that is touching the upper palate. Now let's look at the makhraj of the letter jim. Now for jim, you see it is completely touching. The tongue and the roof of the mouth are completely touching. So here, lots of space, not as much space. Here, no space. So this is the reason why, despite having the same makhraj, jim, sheen, and ya do not sound the same. Okay, so let's look at the letter jim, ja, ji, ju, aj. And then letter sheen, sha, shi, shu, ash. Then the letter ya, ghayr al-maddiya, ya, yi, you, ayyu. Now you'll notice here that here, this one has sukun, ash. This one has sukun, aj. But this one here has a shadda, that small sin. The reason for this is that if this had sukun, it would become madleen. And madleen is part of jawf, as we learned. So that is why here you will see the shadda. Now, if you look at this middle row, ya, yi, you. This beginning area here, ya with a fatha, is from the middle of the tongue. Okay, ya with a fatha is from the middle of the tongue. This alif sound in the end is switching to the jawf. So here you have two letters and you are switching the jawf. So you are going here from the tongue to the empty space between the mouth and the throat. Again, here you have kasra, ya with a kasra. This is going to be from the tongue. Then ya, maddiya, is from the jawf. Again, here you have dhamma. It is going to be from the tongue. Waw is from the jawf. So you are quickly switching between makharij. Ya, yi, you. So if you say this on your own, you will notice that the tongue is going to be touching when you say ya. You have a little bit of pressure, but as soon as you switch to that ah sound, the tongue is going to release from that position. So you can say it on your own, yeah. So as you open the mouth, as that ah sound comes out, you will notice you are switching makharij. You are switching the areas that are engaging in order to create that sound. Also here, you can look at a better example. We have the letter sheen with an alif, sha. So as soon as you finish saying sha, and you move on to the ah part, you are switching makhraj from this area to the jawf. So that is basically what it means when we say ghayr al-maddiya is different than the word with the mad. So here, very important distinguishment. Here, makharij al-ya ghayr al-maddiya without mad, and then jawf is with mad. So this is basically what it means. This front part with a fatha, ya with a fatha, ya with a kasra, ya with a dhamma is always going to be from the middle of the tongue. But as soon as you have this jawf area, so here, for example, in this middle one, ya has a sukun. So you are just going to make this a mad. So here in this case, you are switching from tongue to the jawf. So this is what it means. This is why we have to distinguish between mad that is from the ya, or if you have the ya with a haraka. So one is from the tongue and one is from the jawf. So these are the letters in the middle of the tongue. Again, what is the thing that makes them different? Basically, the amount of space between the tongue and the upper throat. So depending on how much pressure you put, you can change the sound of the letter. So here, if you put a little bit of pressure, ya. Put a little bit more pressure, sha. Put a little bit more pressure, ja. Okay, and you can also notice that here it's moving a little bit towards the mouth, not that much, but just a little bit. Here is ya. Move over just a teensy bit, you have the letter sheen, and then move over a little bit more and you have the letter jeen. So again, just the amount of space between the tongue and the roof of the mouth is going to determine the sound of the letter. So from the middle of the tongue, jim, sheen, and ya. Now let's move on to the sides of the tongue. Now we have the letter dod. Dod is a letter that is very difficult for a lot of people to pronounce. Again, the reason for this is that it is not in the English language. It is not in any language. No language on this planet has the letter dod. And this is also the reason why the Arabs were known as Ahl al-Dad, the people of the letter dad. Why? Because dad was a very difficult letter to pronounce. Many foreigners could not pronounce this letter. And the reason for this is that we are not used to saying the letter dad because no other language in this planet has the letter dad. Arabic is unique in this way. So let's look at exactly how we are supposed to pronounce the letter dad. Now the letter dad you can pronounce differently depending on what is comfortable to you. So inshallah, I will go over that. Now let's look at the general meaning. The back sides of the tongue touch the upper side gums. So now let's look at exactly what is happening. So here we have the upper roof of the mouth. Okay, so now you can imagine this is the roof of the mouth, the top of the mouth. Okay, so here you have your top teeth. Then on the bottom, you have your tongue. So this is basically like the mouth has been opened up. Now you are seeing what is going on. So here we have the tongue. So again, dad is a letter of lisan, of the tongue. Now, how do you pronounce the letter dad? You are going to have very strong pressure on the sides of the tongue, very light pressure on the tip of the tongue. If you are applying too much pressure to the tip of the tongue, dad is not going to sound correct. So you must make sure that you are applying only pressure to the sides. Very light pressure, of course, your tongue is going to touch. It's natural, it is going to happen, but you don't want to push the tongue up against the roof of the mouth. You should have strong pressure on the sides. So the sides of the tongue are going to touch the roof of the mouth. So you will have strong pressure in these green areas. The tip of the tongue should not touch very strongly against the roof of the mouth. Again, it will touch. You will feel it touching. We're not trying to avoid that. We just don't want to press too much against the top of the tongue. So let's say we have the letter dad here, ba. You can say it on your own, ba. And you will notice that it's pressing a little bit against the back of the teeth. You don't want pressure against the front. So if I put pressure against the front, I'll say da. Do you hear that difference? Ba and da. Ba and da. Now the sound sounds very different if I put pressure here compared to here. This is the reason why the letter dad is so difficult. You need to make sure that you are applying pressure in the right areas. So again, da. Not da. Don't press at the tip of the tongue, only the back of the tongue. Ba. Ba is also a heavy letter. So this is a heavy letter. The back of the tongue should be raised. You want a mouthful kind of sound. So we don't want da, da. We want heavy ba. Should have a feeling of fullness within the mouth. Ba, li, lu. And then here, al. So you have a feeling of fullness within the mouth. Now, I mentioned that there are different ways to say the letter dad. This should not change the sound of the letter dad. This is merely based on what is more comfortable for you. So this distinguishment is going to come from which side you are applying pressure to. Okay, now some people, they prefer or they naturally have the tongue applying more pressure on the left side. This is something natural. If you feel that this is more comfortable for you, you can go ahead and do that. So you are going to have more pressure on the left compared to the right. So if naturally your tongue is going to the left side, you have more pressure here, that is completely fine. So you don't have to use both sides. So here, both of these are green. Sometimes people can say the letter dad with only the left side. And you can try to do this on your own as well. I'll say it right now, law. So you can't really tell a difference. I only used my left side. Or some people naturally use the right side of their tongue, law. So again, I only used my right side here, but you can't really tell a difference within the sound. Or naturally, how I do it, I use both sides, law. This is what's easy for me. I use both sides. Again, you can't really tell the difference. So this is basically your preference. Say all three, whatever works for you. The only thing you need to make sure is that this yellow part does not have pressure on it. Very, very light pressure. Of course, it will touch, but you don't want to push down against the tip of the tongue. Otherwise, this is a different letter. Law and the are two different letters. So we don't want to do that. Don't put pressure here. But if you like to use the right side or the left side, that's both of them is fine. If you want to use both as well, you can do that. I personally use both. If you want to use just the left side, you can. If you want to use right side, you can. So again, you want to make sure at least one of these is having pressure. So you need to do at least one. If you want to do both, that's fine. Inshallah, it should not change the sound of the letter. So as long as you are doing it against this sound or this sound, then it should be fine. A trick that I learned when I first started learning the letter Lod is that you can press the back of your tongue. You can press these areas between your two teeth. Very in the beginning, you can do this. Try to do it lightly. So again, you don't want to bite your tongue off. Just this area or this one or both if you want. Just kind of push it between your teeth and you can hold your tongue down between the teeth and this will also give you that sound of Lod. So you can kind of move your tongue a little bit, press it in between these teeth and the bottom teeth. Law. Law. Just until you get used to saying it and you will get used to applying pressure. Then once you know how to do it, you don't have a need to do that anymore. But if you are having difficulty, you don't understand where to apply pressure, what you can do is that kind of wedge your tongue between these two teeth. So these ones and the bottom ones, very lightly, you can do one side, law. So you hear that you can't hear it, of course, but you can feel that the tongue is being pressed against the two teeth. So I'm kind of like holding it into place just so I know where I'm supposed to apply pressure. So again, you can do this in the beginning. Alhamdulillah, once you have gotten the hang of it, you don't need to do this anymore. This is just a way if you need to visualize exactly what's happening within your own mouth, you want to feel exactly what's going on, then you can use this. So just kind of wedge it between your two teeth. You can experiment either left side or the right side or both, whatever is comfortable for you. But again, any of these three is fine as long as you are applying pressure to at least one side. And again, tip should not have pressure. You can hear the way the sound changed. So you don't want to apply pressure here. Of course, it will touch, but not too much pressure. More pressure should be either this side or this side, touching the roof of the mouth. And again, you can also wedge it between your teeth right here just to get a feel for the sound. And then also Lod, like I mentioned, is a heavy sound. The mouth should feel full. So again, it is not da, it is la, la, el, not ed. So you hear that one of them is heavy, one is light. The feeling of fullness should be in your mouth. You should feel the back of the tongue over here is going to be raised a little bit. So this is the letter Lod from the makharij of the sides of the tongue. Now we have the letter Lam. So Lam is going to be from the tip of the tongue and it is going to be along the front sides of the tongue, touching the gums of the upper 8 teeth. So this is a lot of words. Let's look at the diagram to see what this means. Alhamdulillah, a lot of people do not have a problem with this. So inshallah, we're just learning the makharij, but I don't think this is a letter that a lot of people need to work on. Why? Because the letter L is in English. It's also in a lot of other languages. So alhamdulillah, I think it should be pretty simple. So you can say the letter La, Li, Lu. Once you say it, you can visualize within your own mouth exactly what's happening, but let's look at this diagram anyways. So here it says the tip of the tongue. So here the arrow is pointing at the tip of the tongue. Pretty simple, along with the front sides of the tongue. So now this yellow area here is the sides of the tongue. So we have the tip of the tongue along with the sides of the tongue. So this entire area of the tongue is going to be touching. What is it touching? The gums of the upper 8 teeth. So now we are looking at the roof of your mouth again. We have these 8 teeth here. So you can count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So these 8 teeth, the gum line of this. So again, you're not touching the teeth. You're not saying la. So I don't know if you could hear it, but here the tongue was touching my teeth. So they should not be touching the teeth, just the upper mouth, the gums is sufficient. La. La is touching the teeth. La is just touching the roof of the mouth. So you can hear the sound is changing a little bit. So again, don't touch the teeth, just the gums is sufficient. So again, this whole yellow area is touching this yellow area. Pretty simple. You can say it on your own if you want. La, li, lu, al. Now you can hear the letter lam, and you can fully visualize, if you say it on your own, exactly what it means when you see these letters. So the tip of the tongue, along with the sides of the tongue touching the gums of the upper 8 teeth. Now, inshallah, we are going to learn the rule for this later. Lam is a letter that is sometimes heavy and sometimes light. So if sometimes you hear the letter lam is heavy, this is the reason why. So here, for example, we have the word la. La is light. Sometimes the name of Allah is going to be heavy. So the lam in the name of Allah is heavy. So now you're saying lam is not a heavy letter. But this is the letter that in some cases it is heavy, sometimes it is light. Inshallah, we will learn more about this. Not right now, later on, inshallah. Just keep in mind, lam, sometimes heavy, sometimes light. So if you do ever hear, you're wondering, why is the name of Allah heavy? Lam here is heavy, Allah. La and la. These are two different sounds. Why is one heavy, one is light? The reason for this is that sometimes it's heavy depending on the situation. The other letter is going to be the letter ra. Ra, the. So you can see here it's heavy and then it's also light. We will learn the rules for this later. Just keep this in mind. These two letters in the Arabic language are sometimes heavy and sometimes light. So we have the letter lam and ra, sometimes heavy, sometimes light. We will learn the rules for this later on. Inshallah, I just want you to keep this in the back of your mind, that as we come to this, you do have that, inshallah, a little bit of knowledge on this fact. Now let's move to the tip of the tongue. So now we are looking at the letter lam. Lam was from the tip of the tongue. Noon is also from the tip of the tongue. The difference between lam and noon is that the letter noon is only the tip of the tongue. So you're not using most of the tongue. Unlike lam, you also had the sides. So you'll notice here, you see that yellow part, we have the tip of the tongue along with the front sides of the tongue. So here you have the tip and the sides. Meanwhile, in the letter noon, you only have the tip. So that is the difference between noon and lam. Also, you are only touching the gums of the upper 2 teeth. So back then in the lam, you had 8 teeth. Now the noon is going to touch less area of the upper mouth. So only the very, very, very tip of the tongue is going to touch. Lam had more of the tongue touching. Noon, so if you say la and na, you will notice that there is less of the tongue touching. And again, you don't want to press the whole tongue against all 8 of your teeth. You only want 2 of the teeth, the upper 2 teeth. So the roof of the mouth, the front 2 teeth, usually the bigger ones, that is where the noon is going to touch. Again, you are not touching the teeth. So you're not saying na, na. So you can hear that it sounds a little weird. You are going to only touch the roof of the mouth. Na. So only the gums, not the teeth. Na and na have 2 different sounds. I hope, inshallah, you can hear that. So here we have only the upper 2 teeth of the gums. Now, something very important. Now we're going to look at this mouth. Usually you see where the sound is coming from. The sound is up here. What is this? I don't think we've seen this in any of the other letters, right? When we didn't see this. So what exactly is going on here? This is the nose. What is this? This is the nasal passage. And you see the sound is coming from the nasal passage. Okay, so it is coming from the nose. The reason why this is happening is that noon is a letter naturally that goes up into the nose. The sound of the letter noon comes from the nose. So noon is a special letter of 2 that has 2 different makharij. So we learned 5 general areas of makharij. We're doing lisan currently, but khayshum is another one. Khayshum means the nose, the nasal passage. And 2 of these letters, noon and mim, are going to be in 2 different general areas, 2 different makharij. So keep this in mind as we're learning. We will do more of the khayshum later, but I just wanted to point out why the sound is coming from up here. And this might look confusing when you look at it from the side, because we, of course, we don't see anything like this. But here, this is the nasal passage. The letter noon naturally comes from this area. So inshallah, we will learn a little bit more of the khayshum. But basically, if you close your nose and you say the letter noon, you will notice that the sound sounds different. So if I say na, and then I say na, I hope you can hear that I was closing my nose. The sound is very nasally. Na, ni. So this is also why when you have a cold, it's difficult to say the letter noon or to say n or m. Why? Because the sound naturally goes up into the nose. So here we have two makharij, we have the tip of the tongue, and the sound comes out from the nose. You don't need to do anything for the nose. So you don't need to press against the nose or anything. Naturally, the sound just travels up. So here we have na, ni, nu, an. Okay, so here we have the letter noon. Again, keep in mind, you don't have to remember this fully, but again, the khayshum, you don't have to engage the khayshum. You don't really do anything with your nose. Just be aware that the sound does go up into the nose. So that's why noon is a little bit of a nasally sound. Nasally in Arabic means ghunna. Remember this word, we are going to come back to it later. So if I say this letter has ghunna, that means that it's going to come from the nose. So noon is a letter of ghunna, meaning that it has the quality of going up into the nose. It is going up into the khayshum. Therefore, the letter noon has ghunna. Okay, keep this in mind. Again, we will do khayshum later on, but noon and mim have two different makharij. So we have the tip of the tongue, which is this general area, and then also we have the khayshum. The sound goes up into the nose. So again, na, ni, nu, just the tip of the tongue touching the gums of the upper two teeth. Inshallah, we are going to end here for today. Jazakallahu khairan kathiran. In the next class, inshallah, we are going to continue with this topic. We will do more of the letters here that are related to the tongue before we move on to the next makharij. Jazakallahu khairan kathiran, everyone. Subhanakallahumma wa bihamdik. Nashhadu an la ilaha illa ant. Nastaghfiruka wa natubu ilayk. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu.